People committed to the kingdom vision and the kingdom work will attract unlikely people. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for sharing with us today. We know there's a lot going on. There's a lot of programs. There's a lot of activity taking place. What we want to do, what we envision, is simply us coming together and talking about the radical legacy of Dr. King and how his true legacy has been distorted, diluted, sanitized. If I would say, in the words of Cornel West, it's been sanitized, okay? And we only know what we've been told to know. And for some of us today, this might be an expansion of our understanding, and hopefully, if it's not an expansion, I just pray that it's a word of encouragement to us that we maintain and commit ourselves to the radical legacy, to the radicalization of our purposes and our calling as we seek to do the work that we do, okay? Just by way of announcements, you can, the restrooms, if you go down that stairway back there, there's restrooms down there. If you need to come through here, if there's an emergency, or if the fire breaks out, or if there's something go down, you go through here to the exit here, okay? We have prepared we haven't prepared it, but we have a beautiful friend from Liberia, and his restaurant is called the Tasty House, and he has prepared some beautiful things for all of us. Amen. Potato greens. How many of you know what potato greens are? Potato greens. We have jollof rice. We have plantain, and some other beautiful things for you to partake of. If you have never had this, you will be very, very blessed when you partake of these things today. So I think I wanted to have several people speak, and one of those, I don't see Dr. Montero, but I do see my friend here, who I don't even know. Tell me your government name, if you please. I know it's Captain Africa. That's it. That's good. Okay. Huh? Okay. This is the Abolitionist Church. This is a revolutionary ministry. We're committed to abolition. We're committed to not only defunding but deconstructing the injustice system as it exists. So this is all interwoven in what we do. So I want to introduce one of my colleagues in the movement, and one of the things about this movement is it's expansive, it's diverse. So we have all types of people from all types of backgrounds, and sometimes people ask me, Pastor Key, why are you out there with them people? Why are you out with that people? Because the one thing we all have in common is that we all believe in justice. Yeah. We're all fighting oppression and the oppressor. Come on, somebody. That's not only here in America, but wherever it exists, including the settler colonial state known as Israel. I get all that. Wait a minute, hold up. We have to fight oppression wherever it is. So we have to embrace one another, because none of us has the resources alone to get the job done. None of us has the resources alone. We must come together as a coalition and take our strengths, take our heritage and our passion to get this job done. So I was in Bridgewater, New Jersey a few weeks ago with my wife, trying to get a few days of R&R. And I said, I'm fairly close to Newark, New Jersey. And I said, let me call my friend Captain Africa. Isn't that a beautiful name? Yeah. Not Captain America. We got enough Captain American Negroes. Come on, somebody. That's a good place to start. We got enough captains. We got enough military integrationists. We need somebody. We need a Captain Africa. So I said, I like that name. I said, I want to try to, and I didn't realize that he was connected to Brother Shaka Zulu, who we met, Sherry, when we went to the Festival of the Proletariat in Newark. And I said, so he said, yeah, that's my leader, that's my man. I said, okay, all right. So I want you to come and visit. So he has come from Newark down the highway with his lovely wife. Patience is here, and we thank you. And I think you have another guest with you. You have someone else? All right. All right, so thank you for coming. They are our guests, and I just want them to come, and they're going to lead us off and tell us a little about what they've done in Newark, how Newark relates to the struggle, and why we need to continue to inspire one another on this day and not let this day be captured by the colonizer. So, Captain Africa, did you bring your shirts with you? You didn't bring no shirts with you?
Yeah, I got.
You got some shirts?
I didn't read it.
All right, that's all right, man.
Hey, all power to the people.
Yeah, power to the people.
All power to the people.
Power to the people.
Hey, good morning, y'all.
Good morning.
Nah, it's beautiful to be in the presence of revolutionaries.
Yeah.
Nah, you could have been anywhere else, but you chose to come here. It's a lot of different places you could be.
Right.
And I'm not saying that just to be facetious or just to say it, just to make you happy or smile. All of you in here, probably most of you, do the activism work. And you know it's not thankful. It's sacrifices you gotta make.
That's right.
We know because we make them with you. And we all walk this walk together. But I'm supposed to introduce our chairman. He's coming.
Okay.
They coming. They drive a little bit slow. but they're gonna make it. But yeah, but usually when I go to places and I see people speaking, I'm thinking like, what did they do? Like, why am I here listening to them? What do they do? What part of the struggle are they in? Are they just frauds? Are they just out here just jerking wreck? But I'm going to tell you a little bit of what we do, what our leader, Shaka Zulu, what he teaches us to do. Activism is not posting on Facebook. That's not activism. It's not going to a rally. You could go walk 30 miles outside protesting. That's really not activism. It's activities. Your activism is organized. You have a strategy, it's organized, and you bring that into practice. You make it a reality. So what did Shaka teach us to do? We created a program in North where we try to control the space that the children are in 24/7. So how do you do that? In the morning before they go to school, they all want to play sports. So we pick a sport that they want to play. And to play that sport, you got to work harder than anybody else. So in the morning before they go to school, you work out for an hour. After school, you do an after-school program where you do your homework, make sure all that stuff is straight. Then you practice again. You eat. You go home about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And then we do that all over again on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We go games. We do whatever. Sunday, if we have an event, if we giving out food, we doing anything, the kids are there. So basically in a 7-day period, you control the space that those children are in. You're able to make sure that they're safe. Like you know that they're okay. And while they're safe, you get a chance to give them the knowledge that you can force feed people. You can't just grab somebody and be like, stay out of trouble, go to school, do your homework. Like it don't work that way. They're gonna tune you off. So it has to be like a way of life. Like on every day, and like that's what religion really is. Thing that you practice all the time. It becomes a habit. Cause like we in church, like church got they have a bad reputation, like because people really don't understand. The leaders in the community were always the reverend and the pastors. Those were like the first celebrities, the first stars in our community. Because these were the people that the community looked towards for guidance. That's what the church is supposed to be. And that's why I ended up here, because I saw the brother at Mumia's court date. I'm down there, and the brother there, I've never met him before. I've never seen him a day in my, I'm telling you, yo, this is crazy. Your life is crazy, man. Like, I never met him a day in my life, never saw him. So I'm standing in the outside, because I couldn't get inside the courtroom, and the brother comes outside, and I'm like, I want to know what happened in there. I done drove all the way down here to find out what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, I got to ask somebody. The first person I asked, like, I don't talk on camera. I don't want, like, how you don't talk on camera? You came all the way down here. But, and the next day, no, but you know the funny part? I'm watching the Black Power Media with Dr. Jared Ball. They have a podcast. Yo, the same guy that I was trying to get to talk to me, he all in the group chat, putting up comments, talking about, yeah, I was there. But you wouldn't talk to me. But you know who talked to me? He talked to me. He gave me an interview. He let me know exactly what happened in there, what's going on, what's going to happen in the future. I posted it. Thousands of people saw it on my social media page. But then we had a conversation. He said, yeah, I know Shaka Zulu. I came down into the opening. You see, I wasn't at the opening. So I'm like, you know the chairman? You know our chairman? So we started talking. The next week, He called me up, oh, I'm about to go get breakfast. I'm in Newark. I'm like, yo, but once you're doing the work, once you're in the field, you're on the front lines working, it's hard not to see you. People may not want to see you. Those that are in power may not want to see you, but they can't stop you from being seen. Just like this sister here, she probably don't know who I am. I saw her in Chicago. When you on the front lines doing the work, remember you was in Chicago, right? when you're on the front lines doing the work, like you may not know, like people see you, but they see you, cause like your boots are on the ground. I mean, so like the work that we do in the community is try to be right there, and that's what we got to do. When we organizing, you got to go out and have these meetings to come up with strategies to get the job done. That's what activism is. That's the real work. Nobody's giving you a paycheck for. You're using your talents that you've learned out here on the plantation to go back and build an underground railroad. That's activism. That's work. You see, like you're not gonna get no awards. The city's not gonna call you and give you awards and none of that. That don't come with none of this. So when I see you, when I'm in the same space as you, I like to tell you that I see you, that I know the work that you do, because we do it too. But the chairman is gonna come. His speech is gonna be so much more eloquent. He's gonna break it down. He's gonna talk about Dr. King and everything. Gonna do all of that. He's gonna talk about capitalism. But like I'm just warming it up for him when he get here. And like it's beautiful, man. I love coming to spaces like this because I feel alive. Because most of the time it's like you're not part of society. Like you're away from society. The stuff that they celebrate, you don't celebrate. So it seems like you're really not there. Like you wonder, like, am I in a whole different space, different time zone? But like when I'm in spaces like this, it really makes me feel good because I know I'm around people that are with the struggle. I mean, good people. Good people. Hey, I love all of you, man. And Shaka should be here any minute soon. And he's going to bless you with them good words. Say all power to the people. All power to the people.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Captain. I asked Captain, I see Professor Montero has arrived. Doc, you can come on down. Aaron said, okay, cool. Can we see if we can get that up on the screen? Thank you, Brother Aaron. That's our high-tech guy. He's a video production specialist. If you ever need something done, that's the gentleman right there. He is the master of Dutch masters. Y'all not young enough to know about that. But I called, when we were in Bridgewater, I called out to my dear comrade. I called out to Captain Africa, and I said, yo, let's meet up while we're here. I'm only like 30 minutes away. I said, well, name a good, black restaurant that we can go to. Get a little something, Newark, that's black. You can't get blacker than Newark. He said, oh man, you don't want to go to places, man. They ain't no good. I said, look, you mean to tell me nothing? He said, look, man. He gave me the address, but not the name. So I went on my little, I went on this, I said, that's IHOP. I'm like, dude. I said, black. I'm talking about grits and fish and chips and all this. I'm talking about, home fries with real potatoes cut up, not talking about frozen and reheated. He said, look, man, that's the best place we can go to. I said, all right, bro. I'm going to meet you at our house. So I go up in there, right? So I'm up in, I'm expecting, cold, bland, IHOP, I go up in there, they got 2 menus on the table. I'm like, what? They got a soul menu and a regular menu. I said, she got this. Then he said, this is a black girl. Got the franchise. I said, well, let me try the fish. Doctor, I said, let me try the fish. And it was banging. They make you drive to Newark just to get the fish. It was banging. So I said, you never know what you're going to roll up into. You have to be open. And then he showed me, he said, keep taking me, take me down the street. There was a big apartment complex, 20 stories. I never seen the light. 20 stories high. And wide as this block. people, what was it, like 400 or 500 people in there? It was like a city. He said, that's where we live. Because, I like to learn things firsthand. And he showed me the basketball courts and stuff. He said, no, this is where we bring the kids in. This is where they play right there. And then we do the teaching. So in other words, they got, even though it was built, may have had another agenda, but they co-opted that agenda and using it to save black children. You understand? That's what we have to do. So I saw that with my own eyes, and I was very, and it's gated and everything. It's like, security, they got to let you in, let you out. I'm like, whoa, this is Newark. No, you just can't roll in, it don't work like that. But it was beautiful to experience that, and I look forward to coming back out there and us doing some things together and bringing some of you out there to the IHOP. So you can sample some of those things. But again, we want to stay focused on the radical legacy. See, that radicalism is what is being fulfilled by the new African Black Panther Party. It's being fulfilled in many different dispensations and ways and represented here in various ways, even though you may not realize, you may not have made that connection. Some of us have done detailed studies, some of us haven't really studied it at all. But wherever you are in that spectrum, you're important. You're important. Everything that you do, every step you take, every time you stand up. I have an expression that we say here is to show up and stand up. The power is in the people.
That's right.
And that's why the chairman said all power to the people. Some of us don't understand that all power to the people.
That's right.
And before we bring on Dr. Montero, are you ready, Doctor? You need a few moments? You need a few moments? Okay. I don't want to take you out the cold and bring you up here like this. But I'm going to share this with you. The power. Some of us that don't understand the power that you have.
Yeah.
Bloomberg. Y'all know Bloomberg? Michael, Ashkenazi Michael. Okay? The former mayor of New York. Okay? Billionaire. Ran for president. Remember that? And he was offering to pay people, $10,000 a month to work on his campaign. He just had money like, you remember that? Some of you may have even applied for some of them jobs. He's gonna give you an iPhone and a computer and just work for Bloomberg. Work for the capitalists, imperialists. But, people are short-sighted. And we, need to live. But one of the most powerful things that happened, and I hope this inspires all of us, when he went to Brown Chapel AME Church in Alabama, because that's what they do. They come into our sacred spaces to recolonize us. Okay? And he thought that he was going to be in a black church in the Deep South. And this is a rich white man, so-called liberal. And because he supported Stop and Frisk, because he supported all the things that were terrorizing and traumatizing the black community in New York, in Alabama, they knew what was happening up in New York. They felt the pain. And what the pastor didn't do, the people did. Did you get that? What the pastor didn't, the power is in you. When Bloomberg got up to speak, the congregation turned their back on him.
Here you go.
Look it up on your phone. The congregation turned their back on Bloomberg. Bloomberg was so embarrassed that those poor black people from the South turned their back on him. The next day, Captain Africa, he resigned from the race. That was a good place to clap.
Yes.
See, that's the power that you have. We think because we don't have millions in the bank, we think because we don't have a pocket full of credit cards, we think because we don't have all these capitalistic trophies of success, that we don't have the power to change. You feel me, Jeremiah? You have the power to affect change just with your physical presence, because your heart is beating. And wherever your feet shall trod, in fact, the scripture even says, wherever the soles of your feet shall trod, that is a possession for you.
There it is.
And when those people went to church that morning, they had no idea that they were going to cause a billionaire to drop out of the presidential race. You don't know what a day may bring. All you have to do is commit yourself to be in the right space at the right time.
Here it is.
And do the right thing.
Here it is.
Use your courage. Use your boldness.
Here it is.
So that we can change this world for the better. Is that a good word?
That's a good word, Pastor.
All right, so now we want to thank you so much. I just get excited, y'all. I feel like cutting up. But we're going to, I'll say this. That speech right there, that Dr. King, can you roll that back and play? Was it 3 minutes?
12.
Is that the one that, it should be one that's about 3. And one that says a speech not heard before. Well, let me set this up. It's like 3 minutes long. It should already be on there. In one of the windows. I heard something. I thought I had heard most of the speeches from Dr. King, but I don't think any of us know all the speeches from Dr. King, no matter how studious we are. But I heard something as I was searching yesterday, Professor Montero. I heard a speech, and it said it was like a 3-minute excerpt, and it said one of the lesser-known speeches of Dr. King, and he said something that touched my soul. And this is why they work so hard. This is why they got all the young people occupied today doing other things to detract them from fighting the colonizer and fighting for liberation. He said, I'm tired of meeting the first Negro. I never heard that before. He said, I'm tired. He said, I want to meet some second, third, and fourth Negroes. Dr. King said that in 1967 after his speech on Vietnam. What was he saying? He was saying that, and see, the colonizer is still using the same playbook. Oh, she's the first this. Oh, Ketanji Brown, she's the first black female. Oh, she got braids and everything, locks. But Dr. King said, I'm tired of meeting the first. I want to meet some second, third, and fourth. In other words, if they're the first, then you still can't take any credit for that. Because we should have been in these positions a long time ago. Man, that was so exciting to me to hear that yesterday from the mouth of Dr. King. Next time you hear somebody do this long resume about some black person, and they talk about how wonderful they are, see if there's anywhere in there where they stood up for black people. See if there's anywhere in there where they tried to save a black child or a black community or a black anything. See what's in their resume for your people. So I think at this point, it is fitting and proper to bring in one of our dear friends and a scholar in his own right. I know he doesn't like people to go into his scholarship, but he is a scholar. And from the Tenderloin. See, a scholar can come from anywhere. You should have got happy off of that. A scholar can come from anywhere. A scholar from the Tenderloin. Our own Dr. Anthony Montero. He's going to talk about the radical legacy of Dr. King.
You could just.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning, Doc.
It's really a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Pastors Keith and Carolyn Collins for inviting me to speak. This is always a special day for me. The official commemoration of the birth of Martin Luther King Jr. Just personal story. For many years, I would, on this day, always wake up and I felt at ease. I didn't feel celebratory. And on many occasions, I'd have to speak. So I'd get myself together. You know, I usually put on a tie on these days, especially if I have to speak in a church. That's another matter. That's where I was raised. But I would get myself together and do what I had to do. But I could never figure out what was bothering me on this day. Until a couple of years ago, I realized that I had not properly grieved the death of Martin Luther King Jr. And in fact, it occurred to me that the nation has not properly grieved the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. And usually these celebrations turn out to be very superficial. They don't get to the essence of who Martin Luther King Jr. was. And it's kind of like the nation has not yet come to terms with the life and the brutal assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. I don't want to go into the details of how he was killed, but clearly the person who shot him, or the persons who shot Martin Luther King Jr., were well-trained marksmen. King came out upon the balcony of his room at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, and was shot through the throat with one bullet. And, you know, the days that followed were days of expression of rage and anger. There were uprisings in cities all across the country. And then kind of the nation got on with the business of being America. Black folk who perhaps carry the memory of King deepest in their hearts and minds have not grieved King. We have to admit this. And too often we have accepted a narrative about Martin Luther King which separates him from the time that he lived, but more than that, from the future that he foresaw. Martin Luther King is, in my opinion, the greatest American.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
If the nation is to have a future. Has to return to King. You know, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and these were brutal, and they had a tremendous impact upon the nation's future and history. But no assassination was as consequential as that of Martin Luther King Jr. No figure in American history has spoken so deeply to the souls of Americans as Martin Luther King Jr. So at some point, the nation will have to come to the conclusion that it's not enough to name streets and housing projects and even to build monuments to King, because that's a way of sweeping under the carpet what we really have to do to honor King. And like Pastor Keith was saying, there's so many speeches and sermons that King gave that we don't even know about. You know, for many people, it is a revelation, his speech on a time to break silence, why I opposed the war in Vietnam. most people have never read his letter from a Birmingham jail. Few people know of the sermon that he gave most often, entitled 3 Dimensions of a Complete Life. So we really don't know King, and we don't know King because we're avoiding what we have to do, the difficult work of grieving.
Amen.
And how the grieving of a nation will look, especially at a time like this. You know, I want to talk about a couple of things and not talk too long, forgive me. Justice. Usually when we think about justice, we think about law. Justice through the law. We think most often about, for example, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act. And actually, there's nothing wrong with that. Because in a liberal democracy, the law is supreme, or theoretically so. However, Martin Luther King defined justice differently. He said, and I quote, justice is love in calculation. Let me explain that. There cannot be enduring justice without love. Now, King was saying something very different than the theorists of liberal democracy are saying. Who are the theorists of liberal democracy? We're talking about John Locke, we're talking about Thomas Jefferson, we're talking about the founders of the American Republic. They believed in law, and that through law, justice could be achieved. King said, justice and law are inextricably linked together. Most people, when you mention the word love, they think you're talking about something weak. How do I know? I used to believe like that. When I was 19 and 20, of course, I thought I knew it all. And I didn't believe King was real. Even then, I realized he was perfect almost. His speech, his courage. Why would a man with a PhD from a family that was relatively comfortable in Atlanta, Georgia, he could have just gone and taken his father's place in the ministry at Ebenezer Baptist Church? Well, he got a job after graduating from Crozier Theological Seminary here in Chester, and then a PhD from Boston University. By the way, people say, we're going to talk about the radical King. Well, when was King not radical? Believe me. One of the people he wrote about in his PhD dissertation was a socialist, a German socialist theologian named Paul Tillich. King was already aware of fascism and hence the anti-fascist struggle. That's why he insisted in the letter from a Birmingham jail and in other writings on the fierce urgency of now. He was saying, in effect, to Catholics and Protestants in Germany who looked the other way when Hitler was rising, King was saying, that now is the time that one must act. There is no looking the other way when evil is on the move. The fierce urgency of now. So King already understood socialism. He already understood the anti-Nazi struggle of the 1930s and 40s. And being as educated as he was, he understood ultimately that it was people that could change history. I don't know a time when King was not radical. In fact, those who make the claim that there is a more radical way than that articulated by Martin Luther King, I don't think they know Martin Luther King well. I can speak for myself, and perhaps many of you can speak for yourselves also. Think about your own life. How many of us have demonstrated the courage of Martin Luther King Jr.? How many of us were prepared to sacrifice? I mean, he had it all, what he did. No, King represents the best of the black radical tradition, of the tradition of revolutionary change, beginning with where you are and what you have to work with. You're not a revolutionary because you can perform like a revolutionary. You are revolutionary because you can move the people. You can communicate with the people. Anybody familiar with recent activism realizes that much of it is a performance. Much of it is a performance. And frankly, much of it is not liked very well by most people. You hear people say, I don't like activists because they're performers. And when you're a performer, it's more about you than it is about the cause. Let me just return to Martin Luther King. I want to make a couple of points about his concept of justice and its relationship to love. You know, King understood the King James Version of the Bible. He didn't just read the King James Version, he understood it. Most people who claim to know the Bible don't. King did. And he understood the poetics of the Bible, and he understood the characters in the Bible. In particular, there were two that when it came to justice, he always referenced. The prophets Amos and Isaiah. Amos, the lowly herdsman, and Isaiah, the princely prophet. And from these two, he would always quote. From Isaiah, he would quote, "Let every valley be exalted and every hill and mountain made low." Of course, he's speaking allegorically. Let the oppressed be raised up and let the oppressor be brought down. And from Amos, he would always quote that let justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Even when he began in Montgomery, Alabama, the Montgomery bus boycott, a general strike, of the people of Montgomery. If you deny us equal access, we will withhold our money. And it went on for 385 days. And of course, this is the beginning of the civil rights movement. And I think we should understand origins. The civil rights movement, as we know it, in its modern form, begins in Montgomery, Alabama, started at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, where one of the congregants was a brother by the name of Nixon, who himself was a leader in the Sleeping Car Porters Union, the only black union in the country. That around King, including Sister Rosa Parks, who comes out of the left-wing activist movement and the labor movement, a working woman who refused to go to the back of the bus. So King was situated as early as Montgomery, Alabama, only 26 years old, by veterans of the labor and activist movement for the rights of black people. And the first campaign that he was a part of and the public spokesman for was a boycott of the bus company. And it brought the bus company to its knees. It was almost on the verge of bankruptcy. But King, in his speech, the first speech bringing Montgomery, Alabama together, he references the labor movement and the organization of the unorganized in the 1930s. So King already is referencing the radical protest movement in labor and for black rights as he becomes the spokesman of the Montgomery movement for civil rights, but actually for a new form of human rights and democracy. But many misunderstood King because of his ethic that was rooted in the Christian church. I think we should be clear because, excuse me, tell me if you know, the black church is often a difficult phenomenon.
Yeah, come on.
Come on, brother, tell the truth.
You know, you can, it's hard to find the right church. People ask me what church I belong to. I say, well, last count I was a member of 2. At least I went to 2, and that's before COVID. But the black church is one of the great institutions of American history. But with everything that's great, it attracts all kinds of opportunists, dilettantes, and narcissists. And so that turns a lot of people off. I know I was turned off by it, even though I went to one of the best churches in Philadelphia, pastored by the great Reverend Leon Sullivan, who led movements, said, don't buy where you can't work.
Right, that's right.
And 400 ministers got together in Philadelphia. The Enquirer, you don't hire black men and women, we ain't gonna buy the Enquirer. Tasty Cake, you don't hire black men and women, we're not buying Tasty Cake. And one by one, they were brought down.
Teachers.
My pastor taught the social gospel, which to me is the real gospel.
Real gospel.
He did, really, Reverend Sullivan. He baptized me, and I feel very grateful for that. And to have grown up in that church. And even though I got away from the church would never get away from me.
Here it is.
The values of the church, the oratory of the church, the music of the church. In fact, I'm talking too long, but in fact, today I wanted to start what I was saying by playing Donnie McClurkin.
Okay.
But I didn't have the equipment to set it up right. Donnie McClurkin and Rance Allen and them, they're my favorite singers. But I digress. But as Du Bois said, on these shores, the black church precedes the black family. Because, you know, it was illegal to have a family under slavery for 245 years. Rape was legal. The black family was illegal. But on the plantation, you could gather, as we did, for church. So the black church on these shores precedes the black family.
Wow. Wow.
Now that means more than it appears to mean.
That's right.
It means that our lives as black folk, maybe when I finish, Stand by Donnie McClurkin.
Okay.
Not now, but I'll tell you. That means as black folk, our trajectory socially was not the same as Euro-America. We begin with the primary institution being the collective, the church, the community.
Right. Right.
Many sociologists have always criticized black people, saying that your problem is your families are too weak. But the other side of that is the weakness of the nuclear family was overcome by the strength of the community organization.
Here it is.
That's right.
Really, it is.
That's right.
And sociologically, black folk, even up till today, are the most organized group in American society. The group less predisposed to individualism and selfishness.
Oh,
Now, you know, I'm one who has a critique of pop culture as it exists today, which is based upon individualism, materialism, and narcissism. I don't like it. I don't like it.
there you go.
I don't like it in sport. I don't like it in my favorite sport, which is boxing. I don't like it in politics. I don't like black people performing that way at all because it undermines what is fundamental to us, our history, and that is our community. And because of that, King was absolutely right when he counterposed to the liberal democratic theory of the individual and law being the foundation of justice. What King was saying is that it is the community and love which is the foundation of justice, not just law. Because for justice to prevail, or as Amos said, to run down like water, there must be a community, and for there to be a community, there must be love. And this is where the black church has played a heroic, revolutionary, and prophetic role in American society. And to the extent that the black church drifts away From that foundation, to that extent, does American society become more impoverished spiritually and culturally. In other words, the black church, although it is despised like black people are, has given to American culture and society what no one else could give to it. Of course, the music. But where does the music come from? That spirit of love. Listen to Aretha Franklin. Listen to Donny Hathaway. It's so obvious.
It is.
And when our culture, our music, has a different narrative and uses other language, that ain't our music. I don't care who does it. I don't care how they look. That's not our music. And it's not promoted by us. And it's not for us. And we have to protect our children from it.
Speak on it.
Let me just end with this. There's so much to say about King. King's most delivered sermon was one entitled 3 Dimensions of a Complete Life. I recommend it to you. It's on YouTube. I recommend the version of it given at Yale University in 1962. A complete life. A complete life. He says there's the height of life, the width of life, the depth of life, and the height of life. And it is the third dimension that is most important, I think. First, before getting to that last dimension, King was fond of saying that love is the weapon that heals. Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
A weapon that heals. The world needs a weapon that heals. Not weapons, but a weapon that heals. As to the third dimension, the height of life, that it's not all that we see and touch. Even if in this world we give all that we can give, and we do it well, and our intentions are good, there's a third dimension, which King also talked about as not being confined to the colony of time, but that we move to the empire of eternity. What we call, without fully understanding it, immortality. That each of us lives to become immortal, to transcend the colony of time, of now, and ascend to the empire of eternity. It's not an individual matter, it's collective matter. And so the third dimension of life is that dimension where we see more than ourselves, more than our community, more than even humanity itself. We see eternity. And because we recognize that, we better understand and can see ourselves and our community and humanity. I don't know whether that makes sense the way I put it, but to understand the now, you must see it in relationship to the eternal, to something more than the now.
Right.
The moment is a moment But then there's something more than that. And this is King. The third dimension, he called it God. You don't have to call it that, I might not, depending upon your religion and philosophical point of view. But there is something that transcends the immediate. And if it is all about the immediate, it can only be about the individual ultimately. It can only be about materialism, and once you go to that level, you can only be a narcissist. Let me just, everybody knows what a narcissist is. I can suggest if you ever want to get married, or as they say, date somebody, make sure they're not a narcissist. Because it's all about them. I think we all know people like that. I'm trying to get away from them. I've been entrapped in the colony of some narcissists sometimes. But when it gets to that, there is no future. So we're at a point in the life of the United States, a moment of truth, where we're going to have to decide. We have big decisions to make. Whether there will be an American nation or whether there will be an American nation. I'm not an anarchist nor a nihilist, so I'm not a proponent of tear down. That's not my approach to life. Because I have children and grandchildren, first of all. And I know too many children and grandchildren, and I know too many parents. So for me to be an advocate of tearing it down, I ask myself, well, is that a responsible attitude towards the future? No, it is not. Is it an adequate response to what Du Bois called the immortal child? The immortal child, the child who lives forever. No, it's not. So we in the Saturday Free School have argued that the nation is sorely in need of a fourth American Revolution. A revolution that fulfills the aspirations and ambitions of the third one, what we, I don't think so accurately, but nonetheless we call it the Civil Rights Movement. The activists in it called it the Black Freedom Movement, I think, which is more adequate. The previous two, for the American Revolution of 1776, conflicted by two principles that could never live together, the principle of slavery and the principle of liberty. Among the founding fathers, especially Jefferson, he went to his grave in deep despair over how can this country move forward with this contradiction, and it couldn't. Ultimately, there would have to be a second American Revolution. We call it the Civil War and Reconstruction. Americans lost more people in the war, ultimately against slavery, than any other war that the United States has been involved in. But those two, while advancing ideas of great historic significance, did not go as far as the third American Revolution. And here's Martin Luther King, which raises the question of reckoning with the soul of the country. Who are the American people? What is the American nation? And what must be done if there is to be a nation? And this is why King's connecting of justice, not just to law, but to love, is so very vital. However, the Third American Revolution did not realize or fulfill all that King and the others had conceived. And therefore, a Fourth American Revolution is necessary, if not inevitable. And the Fourth American Revolution, and here we get into a debate about what is a revolution. It's a very important thing. And there will be debates about this, and we need to debate it. Will it be a revolution like 1776? I don't think so. Will it be a revolution like the great revolutions of Europe and Asia in the 20th century? I don't believe so. It will be a revolution whose purpose is to remake the American people as a people. And by this I don't mean a uniform, everybody talk alike, because you know, black people, we ain't gonna never talk like white people. I hope we don't. I like my ebonics, and I like to talk like a black person. I hope I sound, sometimes I try to talk, too elevated. I don't sound black enough, and so I got to put a little bass in my voice. But I hope that black people never stop talking like black people and singing like black people and grunting when they sing. I like that. Like Barry White said. He said, I can tell a black singer. And you can imitate the black voice. But it's a black singer. They coming from a whole different place. The voice is not just the voice is the soul. By the way, when black people stop singing, we in bad shape. Please don't never stop singing. That's why we need the church. Because if everything else out there is doing something else, talking and spoken word and all that, there got to be somewhere where black people can sing.
Amen.
In the old style.
Amen.
The blues on up.
Yeah.
But, forgive me, here's what I want to get at. We're not talking about a nation of uniformity. We're talking about a nation of justice. And in the King's sense, a nation where the concept and the life world of love is foundational.
Right.
People are not born into the world loving or knowing how to love. They're born into the world with the potential to love. We teach children to love. When we teach children to say good morning, thank you, please, you know how you were raised with that?
Yeah.
Your mother would say, well, what do you say? Oh, thank you. Those are just manifestations of something deeper. Of course, politeness, of course, generosity, but in the deepest sense of love. If you live in Philadelphia, you know it is a loveless city. There's not much love in Philadelphia. People don't love each other. Ride on the buses in Philadelphia. People don't speak to each other. People don't look at each other. In fact, people are afraid of one another. And that's in Chicago. That's in Cleveland. I'm not even going to talk about St. Louis or New Orleans. I mean, really. Justice is love in calculation. Everybody wants justice, but few people know how to achieve it. So this next revolution will be a revolution to remake a people and to remake a nation. It can be done. It won't be done overnight. There will not be a quick seizure of the government and a declaration of a revolutionary government. That's the easy thing. But the incremental process of changing a people is what we have to do. And if there is to be a new nation, its father will be Martin Luther King Jr. He is that important. There is no equivalent to Martin Luther King. His vision to transform the most powerful and dangerous and militarized country in the world into its opposite is a task that can be achieved, but at the same time, we must understand what are its foundations. Let me just end with this. Let us study Martin Luther King. Let us know what his vision was. Let us recognize him, not as he is so often portrayed as weak and compromising. Believe me, he was not compromising at all. He was not compromising, even when those around him, in that last campaign, I'm going to Memphis to march with the sanitation workers. Andy Young, maybe Ralph Abernathy, some of the most important associates who had been with King for 10 years or more, said, Martin, we're tired, you need to rest. And he said, no, we have a final campaign against war and poverty. That civil rights, which is only laws, is meaningless without justice. And there is no justice without love. We can fight on this basis. We can go to our people, to the people generally, to speak like this, to organize the people, to build a movement of the people from below. But it must be based upon principles that think towards the future. Thank you very, very much.